So it worked very well. They were able to do this with little or no controversy because parents were able to opt in or opt out. This was done quietly but professionally and well. And all of us were proud of it, actually going on in a conservative Midwestern community like this. So that was one thing I wanted to tell you about that I had not mentioned before. There was something else that I thought of that might give you some insight into what it was like to come to Akron. I think we told you that I was recruited in the fall of 1975 and was, I think, in November that I agreed to come here. And then there was a 4 or 5 day sort of welcome to Akron, introduction to Akron arrangement set up by the health department and the Board of Health for the first week in December of 1975. And then I started 5 or 6 weeks later. So between that introduction and moving and getting here, we then packed up at home. I ended my responsibilities in Kentucky and made the transition. But during that week, the woman who would become my administrative assistant, the so-called Health Commission's secretary, told me that a prominent cardiologist in town had contacted her, and he wanted to invite me to dinner to meet some physicians while I was there. And I said, okay. His name was Dr. George Litman. I couldn't say no, really, so I said, sure, I'll go meet with them. And I went to dinner at his house in West Akron. And it wasn't just him and me, it was 3 or 4 other cardiologists and internists. And they wanted to welcome me to town, but really what they wanted to do was to tell me they were interested in the health impact of hypertension, and they wanted to know what I was going to do about it as the new health director. This was 5 to 6 weeks before I started work. I barely knew anything about the department. So it was a pleasant evening. I felt just a little put upon, but not too much, and told them that I couldn't promise them anything, but that I would certainly look at it once I got here. And as it turns out, I did. I learned a fair amount about hypertension and community programs to control high blood pressure, and learned that many of them were successes in the sense that a lot of people had their blood pressures taken, but were real failures in the sense that hardly anybody with elevated blood pressure had it changed as a result of the finding out.
I have a question. Is an issue like that within the rightful province of the health department?
Sure. Any health issue, in a sense, is particularly when you look at it from a community perspective. They were saying the hypertension rates were too high. They were seeing people with disease related to untreated hypertension. And so they were trying to figure out how to go upstream, so to speak, how to get to people earlier, find out they were hypertensive, and then treat them so that the sequelae of heart disease, kidney disease, and other things, stroke and so on, that can come from high blood pressure, dropped in the community. They wanted to drop the rates of serious illness. So it was very appropriate. But I'd not really addressed that issue before. So that meant it was, along with everything else, there was a learning curve there for me. And the short of it is, it took about maybe 1.5 years, 2 years, I don't remember exactly, but I was able to find some external funding once I understood what we needed to do. It was clear that just holding community high blood pressure screening efforts was not enough. We had to have a place for these people to go because most of the people who come to those things don't have physicians. And so when you say, oh, your blood pressure is high, make an appointment with your doctor, which is what most of these efforts focused on, very few people ever saw a physician after that. Very few, as I said, had any change made in their levels of high blood pressure. So the trick was to find a treatment option. So I was able to find some money and to bring enough money in to actually hire an internist to work in the health department.
I could be wrong, but if I drew a circle, a series of concentric circles, of concerns which have historically been the province of health departments, it's my perception that this one was on the outside edge of the outside circle.
Well, not quite that far, but yes, this was at a time when perceptions were beginning to shift, when the sense of community involvement with medicine was getting some serious thought, where there was a growing awareness that if you're going to diminish morbidity and mortality from some of these major debilitating illnesses, then you had to think in terms of the community, not the individual patient.
Okay, let me ask this question.
Mm-hmm.
What is outside the province of public health?
That's health related.
Yeah.
These days, we'd say essentially nothing.
Well, that's an interesting answer.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's changed over the past 40 to 50 years.
Well, that's kind of the way you were thinking back then, but I don't think other people thought that way.
Well, somewhere, I was...
Hold on, we're going to reload here. Just a sec.
Mm-hmm.
Recording stopped.